She made 4 servers quit in 2 months. No one could stand near her without feeling small. At just 14, the billionaire's daughter had a coldness that cut deeper than any words. Everyone said she was impossible to reach. But when the new waitress smiled at her like she mattered, everything changed. The silence in Maple Grove Diner was the kind that made your stomach turn. Everyone froze mid-bite, mid-conversation, mid-breath, because she had just walked in. 14-year-old Avellini Hargrove moved through the entrance like winter itself, her designer coat brushing against the doorframe, her expression completely blank. She didn't look at anyone. She didn't have to. The entire diner already knew what was coming. Carol, the afternoon server, felt her chest tighten. She'd worked at this place for 12 years and had never been afraid of a customer. Until now. Avellini slid into the corner booth without a word, pulled out her phone and waited. Carol approached slowly, her notepad trembling just slightly in her hand. "Hi there, honey. What can I get you today?" Avellini's eyes lifted. "Cold. I'm blinking. Calculating. I don't drink anything with sugar. No dairy unless it's organic. And I need the eggs cooked until the yolk is just barely set. Not runny, not hard. Do you understand?" Carol nodded quickly. "Of course, I'll make sure. And I need it in 12 minutes, Avellini added. Her voice was soft, but it had an edge that could cut glass. "I have somewhere to be." Carol rushed to the kitchen, her hands shaking as she clipped the order to the line. Eddie glanced at it and groaned. "She's here again?" "Just make it perfect," Carol whispered. "Please." But perfection was impossible. The eggs came out 30 seconds too runny. Avellini took one look at the plate, didn't touch it, and stood up. She walked straight to the register, placed a $100 bill on the counter, and left without a word. The money wasn't a tip. It was a reminder of what she could afford and what they couldn't. Carol stood there staring at the untouched plate, her eyes welling up. "I can't do this anymore," she said quietly. "I just can't." The manager, Dan, tried to comfort her, but it was no use. By the end of the week, Carol had put in her notice. She was the 4th server in 2 months. Dan sat in his office that night, staring at the scheduling board, wondering how much longer the diner could survive this. Every time Avellini Hargrove walked through that door, it cost him an employee, and he was running out of people willing to take the risk. Avellini Hargrove wasn't cruel for fun. She wasn't spoiled in the way most rich kids were. She was something else entirely. Distant. Unreachable. Her father, Richard Hargrove, owned half the commercial real estate in the county, and he was never home. Business always came first. Always another meeting, another deal, another reason why he couldn't make it to dinner. Her mother had died when Avellini was 7, a car accident on a rainy October night that Richard never spoke about again. The house had 23 rooms, but Avellini grew up alone in every single one of them. And she learned that if you built walls high enough, no one could climb over them to hurt you. But walls didn't make the loneliness disappear. They just made it quieter. Made it easier to pretend you didn't feel anything at all. At school, Avellini sat alone at lunch. Not because no one invited her, but because she made it clear she didn't want company. Her classmates whispered about her in the hallways, called her names behind her back, but never to her face. She had a way of looking at people that made them feel small, like she could see every flaw and mistake they'd ever made, and she'd use it against them if they got too close. Her teachers tried to reach her at first. Mrs. Henderson, her English teacher, had pulled her aside after class once. "Avellini, I know things are hard at home, but you don't have to push everyone away. We're here to help." Avellini had looked at her with those ice blue eyes and said, "I don't need help. I need people to leave me alone." Mrs. Henderson never tried again. None of them did. 3 days after Carol quit, a new waitress started her first shift. Her name was Bryn Calloway, 24 years old, with a steady calmness that seemed to slow the world down around her. She had warm brown eyes and a way of listening that made people feel like they mattered. She'd moved to town from 3 states away, working to support her younger brother through college after their parents passed away in a house fire 2 years ago. Dan pulled her aside before the lunch rush. "There's a girl who comes in here sometimes," he said, lowering his voice. "Avellini Hargrove. If you see her, just be really careful. She's difficult, Bryn asked gently. Dan nodded. That's putting it lightly. She's made grown adults quit. I just don't want you to be blindsided. If she gives you trouble, just let me know and I'll handle it. Bryn smiled softly. I'll be okay. Dan didn't believe her. No one ever was. But Bryn had a quiet confidence about her, something he couldn't quite place. She'd been through her own kind of hell and come out the other side still believing people were worth fighting for. The next afternoon, Avellini walked in again. The usual tension rippled through the diner. Conversations dropped to whispers. Forks clattered against plates. Bryn was wiping down a table near the window when she saw her. She didn't stiffen, didn't panic. She simply finished what she was doing, picked up a menu, and walked over. Hi, Bryn said warmly. I'm Bryn. I'll be taking care of you today. Avellini didn't look up from her phone. Sparkling water. No ice. Lemon on the side, not in the glass. And a spinach salad with the dressing separate. No onions. No tomatoes. Bryn wrote it down carefully, taking her time with each word. Got it? Anything else? That's it. Bryn nodded and walked away without hesitation. She didn't rush. Didn't fumble. She moved with quiet confidence, the kind that didn't need to prove itself. In the kitchen, Eddie looked at the order and sighed. Another Hargrove special, he muttered. Good luck, new girl. Bryn just smiled. I think it'll be fine. When the water arrived, Avellini inspected it like she was examining evidence in a court case. The lemon was on the side, exactly as requested. The glass was spotless. No water spots. No fingerprints. She took a sip, and for the first time in months, she didn't find anything wrong. The salad came next. Dressing separate. No onions. No tomatoes. Everything perfect. Avellini ate in silence, but something felt different. She glanced up at Bryn, who was refilling coffee at a nearby table, moving with an easy grace that didn't seem forced. And for just a second, their eyes met. Bryn smiled. Not the fake customer service smile everyone else gave her. A real one. So genuine. Like she was happy to see her. Avellini looked away quickly. She didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know how to process kindness that didn't come with conditions or expectations. When she finished eating, she left exact change on the table. No extra. No tip. But she didn't complain either, and for the staff at Maple Grove Diner, that was practically a miracle. Over the next 2 weeks, Avellini came back to the diner 6 times. Each time, she requested Bryn's section. She never said why. Never spoke more than necessary. But Bryn noticed. She always noticed. She saw the way Avellini's shoulders relaxed slightly when she sat down. The way her voice wasn't quite as sharp when she ordered. The way she lingered a little longer over her tea, like she didn't want to go back to wherever she came from. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Avellini arrived looking different. Her coat was soaked. Her hair was messy, strands sticking to her face. And her eyes, usually so cold and controlled, were red around the edges. She slid into the booth and stared out the window at the rain. Bryn approached gently, holding a pot of hot water. Rough day? Avellini's jaw tightened. I'm fine. Okay, Bryn said softly. What can I get you? Just tea. Something warm. Bryn brought her a pot of chamomile, set it down carefully, and started to walk away. But then she paused. She turned back. You know, if you ever want to talk, I'm a pretty good listener. Avellini stared at her. No one had ever said that to her before. Not like that. Not without wanting something in return. Not without some hidden agenda or expectation that she'd suddenly become someone different. I don't need to talk, Avellini said quietly. I know, Bryn replied. But the offer stands. She walked away, leaving Avellini alone with her tea and the strange, uncomfortable feeling that someone had just seen through her walls. And hadn't run away. Hadn't judged her. Hadn't tried to fix her. That night, Avellini sat in her enormous empty house, staring at her phone. Her father had texted to say he'd be in Boston for another week. He always had another week. Another meeting. Another deal. Another reason why she came second to everything else in his life. She thought about Bryn. About the way she didn't flinch, didn't pity her, didn't treat her like a problem to be solved or a reputation to be managed. For the first time in years, Avellini felt something crack inside her chest. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was there. A tiny fissure in the ice she'd spent so long building. And it terrified her. Avellini didn't go back to the diner for 5 days. She told herself it was because she was busy, because she didn't need some waitress acting like she cared. But the truth was harder to swallow. She was scared. Scared that if she went back, Bryn would see more than she wanted anyone to see. Scared that the walls she'd spent years building would crumble. And she'd be left with nothing but the loneliness she'd been running from all along. Scared that if someone actually got close, they'd eventually leave like everyone else did. But on the 6th day, she found herself standing outside Maple Grove Diner in the rain. Her hand hovered over the door handle for a long moment. She almost turned around. Almost walked away and never came back. Almost convinced herself that she was better off alone. Then she pulled the door open and stepped inside. Bryn was at the counter, rolling silverware into napkins. When she looked up and saw Avellini, her face lit up. Not with pity. Not with caution. Just warmth. Like seeing an old friend you've been worried about. "Hey," Bryn said. "I was hoping you'd come back." Avellini's throat tightened. "You were?" "Yeah." Bryn gestured to the corner booth. "Your spot's open." Avellini sat down slowly, feeling strangely off balance. Bryn brought over a pot of tea without being asked. The same chamomile from last time. She set it down gently and slid into the seat across from her. "I'm technically on break," Bryn said with a small smile. "Mind if I sit?" Avellini shook her head. She didn't trust her voice. Didn't trust what might come out if she tried to speak. For a while, they sat in silence. Bryn didn't push, didn't ask questions. She just sat there, present and patient, like she had all the time in the world. Like there was nowhere else she'd rather be. The diner hummed with quiet conversation around them, but their booth felt like its own separate world. Finally, Avellini spoke. "Why are you being nice to me?" Bryn tilted her head. "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because everyone else hates me," Avellini said flatly. "I know what they say. That I'm impossible. That I make people quit. That I'm cold and mean and hurting," Bryn finished softly. Avellini's breath caught. No one had ever said that before. No one had ever looked past the ice and seen the truth underneath. They saw the sharp edges and decided that was all there was. "I'm not hurting," Avellini said, but her voice cracked on the last word. Bryn reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "It's okay if you are." And that was it. That was the moment the walls finally broke. Avellini's eyes filled with tears, and she couldn't stop them. She pulled her hand back, covering her face, her shoulders shaking. She tried to hold it in, tried to force it back down like she always did, but it was too late. Everything she'd been holding onto for years came flooding out. "I'm sorry," she whispered through her tears. I'm sorry. "You don't have to be sorry," Bryn said quietly. "Not with me. Not ever." Avellini cried in that booth for 10 minutes straight. Bryn didn't move. Didn't look away. Didn't tell her to calm down or pull herself together. She just stayed. And when Avellini finally lifted her head, mascara streaking down her cheeks, Bryn handed her a napkin and smiled. "Feel better?" Avellini nodded, wiping her eyes. "I don't know why I'm like this." "Like what?" "Mean. Cold. I don't know how to be anything else. It's like I forgot how to be normal." Bryn leaned back in her seat. "You know what I think? I think you've been protecting yourself for so long that you forgot you don't have to anymore. Not with people who actually care." "No one cares," Avellini said bitterly. "I do," Bryn said simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Avellini stared at her. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Bryn replied. "I know you're scared. I know you're lonely. And I know you're a lot kinder than you let people see. I know you left a $100 bill the last time you were upset with your food. You didn't have to do that." Avellini looked down at her hands. She'd never thought about it that way. Never realized that people might see her actions as anything other than showing off. "My mom died when I was 7, Avellini said suddenly. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Car accident. My dad never talks about her. He just works all the time and I'm alone, and I got so used to being alone that I started pushing everyone away before they could leave me first. Bryn's eyes softened. I'm so sorry, Avellini. Don't be sorry, Avellini said. Everyone's always sorry, but no one ever does anything about it. They just say sorry and then they disappear. I'm not going anywhere, Bryn said firmly. You say that now. I mean it. Bryn reached across the table again. My parents died 2 years ago. House fire. I lost everything in one night. And I learned that the only way to survive that kind of loss is to let people in, even when it's scary. Even when every part of you wants to build walls and hide. Avellini looked at her with new eyes. How do you do it? How do you stay so calm? I'm not always calm, Bryn admitted. But I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to let grief turn me into someone I didn't recognize. Someone mean or bitter. I wanted to honor my parents by being the kind of person they raised me to be. Patient. Present. Over the next few weeks, something shifted. Avellini kept coming back, and Bryn kept sitting with her during her breaks. They talked about small things at first. Music. The weather. Then bigger things. Avellini told her about her mother, about the memories she was afraid she'd forget, about how her father buried himself in work and left her to drown in the silence of their enormous house. She told her about the kids at school who whispered about her, about the teachers who'd given up trying to reach her, about the crushing weight of being alone in a crowd. Bryn listened to all of it. Never judged. Never pitied. Just listened. And sometimes she shared her own stories, about her brother in college, about the struggle to make ends meet, about the nights she cried herself to sleep missing her parents. They found common ground in their grief, in their loneliness, in their determination to survive. And slowly, Avellini started to change. She said please when she ordered. Her voice lost some of its sharp edge. She thanked the kitchen staff. She even apologized to Carol one afternoon when they crossed paths in the parking lot. I'm sorry for how I treated you, Avellini said, her hands shoved in her pockets. I was awful to you. And you didn't deserve that. Carol's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more than you know. One Saturday afternoon, Avellini walked into the diner with a small potted plant. She set it on the counter in front of Bryn. A white orchid, delicate and perfect. What's this for? Bryn asked, surprised. You said you liked flowers, Avellini said quietly. I remembered. Bryn's eyes softened. Thank you, Avellini. This is really sweet. Avellini shrugged, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. A real one. The first one Bryn had ever seen from her. Months passed. Avellini's reputation slowly transformed. People stopped bracing themselves when she walked in. The tension that used to fill the diner disappeared. She started helping younger kids who came in with their families, offering advice on homework, recommending books. She volunteered to tutor at the community center on weekends. And every Friday, she came to the diner and sat with Bryn, the one person who had looked past the ice and seen her heart. One evening, Richard Hargrove came home early for the first time in months. He found Avellini in the kitchen making dinner, not ordering takeout, actually cooking. She was humming softly to herself, something he hadn't heard since she was a little girl. When did you learn to do that? He asked, genuinely surprised. Bryn taught me, Avellini said simply, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. Who's Bryn? Avellini looked at her father, really looked at him, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel angry. She felt sad, but also hopeful. Like maybe things could be different. She's someone who cared when no one else did, Avellini said. She's the reason I'm still here. The reason I didn't give up completely. Richard felt something twist in his chest. He'd been so focused on building his empire that he'd lost sight of the only thing that really mattered. His daughter. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I should have been there. I should have seen what you were going through. Avellini nodded. You should have. But it's not too late. We can start over. And for the first time since her mother died, father and daughter sat down and had dinner together. About her mother, about the business, about school, about life. They laughed. They cried. They started to heal. At the diner the next day, Avellini sat across from Bryn and smiled. "I don't think I ever said thank you." "For what?" Bryn asked. "For seeing me," Avellini said softly. "When I didn't even see myself. For not giving up when I gave you every reason to." Bryn reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You were always worth seeing. Always worth fighting for." And in that small, ordinary diner, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the hum of conversation, Avellini Hargrove finally learned what it meant to be strong. Not by building walls, but by letting someone in. Not by pushing people away, but by allowing herself to be loved. The girl no one could handle had finally found someone who understood that she didn't need to be handled at all. She just needed to be loved. To be seen. To be reminded that she was more than her pain, more than her walls, more than the loneliness that had defined her for so long. She just needed someone to stay. Sometimes the coldest hearts just need the warmest patience. Avellini wasn't broken. She was just waiting for someone who wouldn't give up on her. What do you think changed her the most? Was it Bryn's kindness, or did Avellini already have that strength inside her all along? Have you ever met someone like Avellini, or maybe you've been that person yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button and share it with someone who needs a reminder that they're worth fighting for. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories about healing, hope, and the quiet moments that change everything. Thank you for being here.